Thank you. This is a reconvened special meeting of the Village Board of Trustees for December 10th, 2018. There's one item on the special meeting agenda, and that's consideration of action to fill a vacant seat on the Board of Trustees, and I'll have Attorney Euler explain what that action is.
So we need a motion to return to open session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Want me to call roll?
Roll call.
Trustee Model?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
And now we need a motion from one of the trustees regarding filling the vacant mayoral seat at this point.
I'd like to make a motion that let 3 of the very talented trustees split in 3 separate issues. We have 9 continued meetings. Each trustee takes the meetings for 3 in a row.
I second that.
Okay, can we add one issue to your motion regarding who will serve that first, those first 3 meetings, so we know who's going to sit here tonight?
I'd like to make a motion that we have 3 talented trustees, give them all the space that they have. Trustee Pavesa, Trustee Model, and Trustee Francis.
In that order.
In that order, please.
Okay.
I second it.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Model?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Schiappa?
No.
So the motion passes. Just to explain what the what the board just did. A motion was made and seconded to have 3 of the current trustees. This board has the authority to fill the chair of the vacant mayoral seat, and they have acted to appoint 3 of the trustees to each serve and preside over 3 meetings from here until the upcoming April 2nd election, at which a new mayor will be elected and will begin their term.
And with that, we'd ask for a motion to adjourn the special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Model?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
6-0.
You can move over there, bang the gavel.
Assume the chair. Congratulations.
Okay.
Ready now? I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Mayor and Board of Trustees for the Village of Burr Ridge. It's December 10th, 2018. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Will you please stand and join us? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is resident comments. Are there any residents?
Roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry, the roll call. I thought we had roll calls already.
Got a lot of them.
Trustee Francis?
Here.
Trustee Model?
Here.
Trustee Pavesa?
Here.
Trustee Matal?
Here.
Trustee Snyder?
Here.
Trustee Schiappa?
Here.
Are there any resident comments? If anybody wants to talk on Sterigenics, it's appreciative if they wait till that subject comes up on the agenda. Anyone else? Yes.
Is this on? I did sign up, by the way.
Okay.
Yvonne Mayer, Burr Ridge resident. I just would like to read into the record an email I sent the trustees this afternoon. I knew that you were meeting in executive session to discuss the appointment of the interim village president. I think everybody's a little surprised that you've appointed 3 people. And so what's clear is that there's 6 of you. Obviously, you couldn't reach a majority vote. But this afternoon, I wrote you, and my email indicated that I would wanted to take the opportunity to urge you to appoint Trustee Pavisa. Trustee Pavisa is the most recent trustee who officially served as mayor pro tem in the absence of former Mayor Stroud. He has long served the community as an honorable trustee and earned the right to a full appointment, not just a partial appointment, through the April 2nd, 2019 election. No disrespect intended to you, Mr. Francisi, because you're also a veteran on this board. I understand that Trustee Model is running for the village president position in the April election and obviously wanted to be appointed tonight to the interim position. I urged you not to appoint Mr. Model in full or even in part because he has created division and hostility amongst Burr Ridge residents through his interference in the business of the Hinsdale Township High School District 86 and in his leading the Vote No committee that opposed the recently defeated D86 referendum. He also led the charge to file a civil rights complaint with the Department of Education against D86, a complaint that was dismissed but further divided the community. During these efforts, Mr. Model publicly and in writing called residents who supported the D86 referendum, quote, rabid animals, end quote. He further attacked D86 board members in email correspondence he sent them dated August 23rd, in which he stated, quote, I'm about to turn up the heat on all of you. What we need is to get wasteful, bigoted, elitist racists such as yourself out of office. You do not deserve the trust and responsibility that has been bestowed on you. In case you have not noticed, I've done everything I promised I would when I visited your meeting last September. You all have not even seen the beginning of what is coming your way, end quote. The trustee you are all supposed to appoint tonight to serve as the interim village president will be the public face of the village, each and every time they take the seat to run this meeting. He will serve as your leader. I asked in my email to you today to appoint someone who had not pursued a vendetta against D86, threatened other public officials, or called any taxpayer a rabid animal. Why? Because Burr Ridge is supposed to be a, quote, very special place, end quote. Or so you call it on the village website and even on your agenda page for tonight's meeting. Tonight, by appointing Mr. Model to serve even as a partial interim, you have tarnished the image of this special place. I'm very sorry you've done that. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Next item is the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the board member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda. Minutes. A, approval of regular board meeting of November 12th, 2018. B, receive and file draft stormwater committee meeting of November 13th, 2018. C, receive and file draft of plan commission meeting of November 19th, 2018. D, receive and file draft of economic development committee meeting of November 20th, 2018. C, ordinances C, ordinance authorizing the destruction of personal property owned by the village of Burr Ridge. 7, resolutions. Approval of resolution authorizing antenna license agreement for water tower 16W 050 83rd Street, Windstream. C, approval of resolution authorizing antenna license agreement for water tower 7101 Garfield Avenue, Windstream. D, adoption of resolution authorizing a local public agency agreement between the Illinois Department of Transportation and the Village of Burr Ridge appropriating funds for the County Line Road North Connection Sidewalk Project, STP. A, considerations. Was it D1?
No, it starts with G.
Considerations. G, approval of contract for police department to purchase speed radar trailer in the amount of $16,000. H, receive and file stormwater committee final report of KLM culvert study. I, receive and file letter of resignation from general utility worker 1, Nathan Engquist, effective December 21st, 2018. J, approval of recommendation to authorize Public Works Director to fill vacancy of part-time general utility worker 1 position. K, approval of vendor list dated November 26, 2018 in the amount of $232,205.12 for all funds, plus $183,727.09 for payroll, for a grand total of $415,932.21, which includes special expenditures of $33,132 for crack sealing and $37,081.60 for the 2018 road program. L, approval of lender list dated December 10, 2018 in the amount of $477,747.21 for all funds, plus $196,082.82 for payroll, for a grand total of $673,830.03, which includes $245,561.93 for special expenditures for the stormwater project at County Line Road and Deer Path Trail. So could I have a motion to approve the following? On minutes A, B, C, D, on ordinances C, on resolutions B, C, and D, considerations what is it, F, G, H, and I, J, K, and L.
So moved.
Second.
Any comment? Roll call.
Aye. Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Model?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Pabeza?
Yes.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
Trustee Skiappa?
Yes.
6-0.
Passed 6-0. Next item up is a public hearing on the 2018 tax levy.
This is a public hearing for the 2019 Village of Burr Ridge property tax levy. The total request for the tax levy is $1,256,195, which represents an increase of $72,266, or 6.1% over 2017. The Village of Burr Ridge, like all non-home rule communities in Cook and Collier counties, is subject to the state-imposed annual tax levy cap of 5%, or the cost of living, whichever is lower, plus any property tax generated from new growth in the village, including annexation and new construction. The cost of living increase this year from the Consumer Price Index has been set at 2.1%. The new growth portion of the property tax will only be assessed in final in the first quarter of 2018 by the Township Assessor's Office. In the meantime, the village guesses high so that we don't lose out on any tax dollars from new developments. The county, once they assess the actual taxes from new development, will lower our levy to meet the actual amount generated from new construction in the village. The total levy is divided into three categories. First, the police pension fund is funded, and that is based on actuarial calculations and as per state of Illinois guidelines, and we are meeting our police pension obligations as we have always done. The remainder of the levy is divided between the police protection levy and the corporate levy, both of which go for day-to-day services in the police department and for other village services. As we always do when we levy our property tax, we remind the board and the taxpayers that the Burr Ridge property tax levy represents less than 2% of a Burr Ridge resident's tax bill. The remaining 98% plus goes to other local taxing districts such as the schools, fire districts, county, et cetera. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the public hearing or the ordinance that's upcoming on the agenda.
Any questions?
As for public comment.
Are there any comments from the public on the tax levy? I also want to bring out, similar to what our village administrator said, Burr Ridge, I know in walking around and talking to residents, they complain about the high taxes. It's not the village. We're one of the lowest tax villages out there. Like he said, your tax bill is less than 2% for the village. And before we pass it, I just want to make sure there's no input from the public. Okay. Okay, if there's no other comment, to close the public hearing. Do I have a motion, or no, you motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
I moved.
Roll call.
Trustee Skiappa.
Yes.
Trustee
Point of
Model.
order, I said so moved, and I think he said second.
I moved it.
Oh, didn't hear. Then who seconded it?
I thought you did.
I said so moved.
Oh. Sounded like second.
Should we start over?
Oh, Al seconded. You seconded.
Al second, yeah, I think you seconded it.
I didn't second it.
You're looking for a second?
If,
I can second it.
Okay.
I just want to get it clear. I don't really care if I'm first or second or on it at all. I just want to follow the rule.
do you have a first and a second?
I do. Trustee Skiappa.
Yes.
Trustee Matal.
Yes.
Trustee Snyder.
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa.
Yes.
Trustee Model.
Yes.
Trustee Francis.
Yes.
6-0.
The motion passed. Public hearing's closed. Now, taking it a step further, under ordinances, consideration of an ordinance levying taxes for all corporate purposes for the village of Burr Ridge, DuPage, and Cook County, Illinois, for the fiscal year commencing on May 1st, 2019, and ending April 30th, 2020.
This is the ordinance approving the tax levy for which we just had the public hearing.
Any comments, any questions? Public? Could I have a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Snyder.
Roll call.
Trustee Skiappa.
Yes.
Trustee Francis. Trustee Model.
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa.
Yes.
Trustee Matal.
Yes.
6-0.
Under ordinances, B, consideration of an ordinance providing for the issuance by the village of Burr Ridge, DuPage, and Cook County, Illinois, of not to exceed $3,500,000 revenue bonds, King Brewwood House Project, Series 2018, and authorizing the execution and delivery of financing agreement and related matters in connection therewith.
Thank you, Trustee Paveza. This is an item that was requested by a property owner in Burr Ridge, the King Brevard House, located at 6101 County Line Road. The representatives for King Brevard House approached the village staff and asked if we would be willing, if the village would be willing to consider issuing bonds on behalf of King Brevard House to support their $3.5 million renovation of their building that dates back to 1933. As all of you know, King Brevard is a not-for-profit organization that's been located in the village since 1933, actually prior to the village's existence. And under state statute, the village can issue bonds, can sponsor bonds on behalf of private development intended as an economic development tool for the development or improvement of property within the municipality. As noted, King Brevard House is seeking $3.5 million in bonds, and we have received assurances from the village attorney as well as from the attorney for King Brevard House that the issuance of such bonds is at no cost to the village, and the village has no ongoing financial responsibilities or other risks related to the repayment of the bonds and interest, and that the village may also request a fee to be paid. Again, that's as per state statute, and the state statute specifically exonerates the village from any risk or responsibility for repayment of said bonds. The village staff attempted to calculate what an appropriate fee would be. We had our bond consultant look at that and also consulted with representatives from King Brevard House. And our recommendation, based on the information we had, was to charge a fee of $30,000. I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding this matter, but I also understand that representatives from King Brevard House are also present.
Good evening, Mayor and trustees. Kathleen Keating, counsel for King Brevard House.
And I'm Jim Snyder, bond counsel at Ice Miller.
I just wanted to clarify one thing. The basis for the village administrator's calculation of the fee that would be due from KB to Burr Ridge was based on an interest savings of $90,000. We are saving interest of $90,000 by doing this tax-exempt financing. However, it's costing us $45,000 more in bond counsel and bank fees to get that type of a tax-exempt bond financing. And that was never conveyed to, I don't think it was conveyed to the village administrator. The other thing I'd like to point out is this money is being used to gut, remodel, and renovate an entire wing of our assisted living apartments. These apartments are dating back to the 1930s and 40s. They consist of 2 very small rooms. The bathrooms are not anywhere near being ADA accessible. So we're doing a whole wing where we've moved the residents already. We're going to gut these 2 first and second floors of our south wing and create apartments that reflect the way people live today and are ADA compliant. We think that this is going to increase our census in the assisted living arena, bringing more people into King Brevard House with their families, increased tax revenue for the village. We think this is a benefit to Burr Ridge to have this renovation done. And since it's being done at no risk to the village, we would ask that the fee be waived.
Questions? First of all, thank you for being willing to make this great investment in our village and in your facility, and I know it will benefit our residents as well as many other residents. So you had mentioned that there would be an interest savings of $90,000, but that to go down this path of these bonds, utilizing the village and increment financing, it'll cost you an additional $45,000 for only a net savings of $45,000. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And just to reiterate, there's no risk to the village. The village is not on the hook for anything should
Correct.
something financially happen to you, not that it will, but something should financially happen to KB and you wouldn't be able to repay these bonds in a timely fashion, the village is not responsible at all.
Correct. Northern Trust is the lender in this
Yes.
situation. The village is acting as a conduit.
Yes.
We prepared the documents, Ice Miller, and there's language in there. The borrower indemnifies the village for any potential costs and liability.
Make that clear to the residents so they understand that we're not in the business of lending money and we're not on the hook should something go south at KB. But thank you.
Exactly.
Can you repeat that piece? You're indemnifying the village for any costs and fees?
Yes. So if anything happens down the road, so there's no liability, as Mr. Pollock mentioned, there's no liability on behalf of the village on these bonds. And in addition, in the event there was any costs, let's say the IRS challenged something, or there's any legal costs or any other costs, the borrower fully indemnifies the issuer for any costs or responsibility.
Yes.
Doug, when we discussed this, previous meeting or while we went through all of this, there was no discussion about these hidden fees that they're just bringing up today. The whole discussion was for the village to go out and let this go through so they could save $90,000. And that's the way it was proposed to us. You're gonna let us save $90,000. We'd like to pay you some small fee to have Burr Ridge involved. Am I correct?
Yes, yes.
Now we're coming back and saying, well, we made a mistake.
They let me know there were some fees involved on their part, but I had no idea it was as much as what I
Okay, thank you.
today.
And we were just, Ice Miller does not Ice Miller is representing the issuer of the bond, Burr Ridge, in this transaction. King Brevard House was only told by Northern Trust this afternoon at about 3 o'clock that there was this $30,000 fee. That's the first that KB heard about it, or I heard about it.
Yes.
So I appreciate the argument, and I appreciate very much King Brevard being in the community and stuff here, and it sounds like a good thing. You know, I was in favor of it up until I've heard the proposal to cut our fee. I mean, we have a responsibility to the village, to the taxpayers. We have a budget issue as well, like many villages do. We have to deal with budgets and make sure we have adequate revenue. And I thought, well, this was a great thing to be a win-win for the village and for King Brevard House. Now, I understand you want us to cut your fee. I would ask Ice Miller for the same argument that you made to us that this is a great project, that you all cut your fee to zero, and then maybe we could make a deal. But I wonder why you expect us to cut it to zero to help you. Are you going to cut your fee?
I already have cut my fee.
And from our perspective, we thought we were cutting our fee already because I told Doug, let's start with 60. So, you know, I think the village has to get something for the trouble of doing this, the time before us. I think it's unreasonable to propose a zero fee.
We would be happy to entertain a reduced fee. If the 30 was based on 1/3 of our total savings, and our total savings is 45, we'd be happy with 1/3 of 45. We'll pay $15,000. And by the way, I did email Doug this afternoon, I'm sorry, the village administrator, the calculations about the interest and the additional fees, and I have copies if people would like to see that substantiated.
Would you and Jerry feel comfortable with that?
The question is the board comfortable? I think at 15, I'd want we've incurred expenses and legal fees. I'd want that added to the fee, which are not substantial, not a lot, but there are some legal fees in preparation of this.
Yes.
It seems like, isn't it kind of surprising that Northern at the last minute decides to, by the way, you owe us additional fees? You were not aware from Northern, they gave you no,
King Brevard was aware of the addition of the loan fee from Northern and the bond counsel fee from Ice Miller, but until this afternoon at about 3 o'clock, King Brevard House didn't know that Burr Ridge was thinking about charging a fee.
Well, here's.
I think the bank knew about it, and I think Ice Miller knew about it.
We knew, I mean, I was in conversations with Doug about my experiences with other communities, and we talked about a potential fee. There was never a set fee amount. Matter of fact, I wouldn't say right now, it sounds like you haven't approved this yet, so I would say it's still up in the air. We talked about the $30,000 fee, and so I made a few calls to make sure, hey, this is where it looks like it's going. And that's where, Kathleen, that's where I don't think anything's been surprised or anything new. It's just the fee hasn't been finalized.
Right, but we didn't hear about it till this afternoon, though.
Yes.
It was my understanding that traditionally when towns do this, there is a fee involved.
I would, I do a lot of this. I would say 100% of the time, the village or city does not pay any cost. So they make sure they're out of pocket. What the fee is varies. It is not unusual at all for it to be waived. It's not unusual at all for the village to charge a fee. Usually when the facility is located and the bonds are issued for a facility inside the village, that is taken into consideration. Because sometimes we do a fee, a bond issue outside, which you can, if you're within 10 miles, you can have another community. And I had conversations with everybody about potential alternatives in the event that Burr Ridge would not issue. And I told them what I thought those fees would be.
Thank you.
Yes, Tony?
And King Brevard is a nonprofit.
Correct.
Yes. The fees from Northern Trust, these are their just fees to generate the loan, issue the bonds, or?
It's the fee, it's the loan commitment fee to do to be the lender in the first place, plus their fees to document the loan,
Okay.
which are in addition to bond counsel fees. That's why there's such a big differential between a typical bank loan of this magnitude would be done on, form documents if it were a conventional type construction loan.
Like a set percentage, or is it just a number that they come up with?
Well, I would say the way I would look at this is whatever the savings is, and we have an analysis that it's 90,000 minus the additional costs that would be incurred, that would not be incurred but for a bond. That would be my fee, which is I give them a range of between 15 and 20, and it's substantially less than what it was initially, and substantially less than what it typically is, plus whatever your fee. That number is
And the bank's fees.
well, the bank's fees would probably be charged. I don't know what additional fees there would be because of, I think the bank's fees are getting kind of lumped in here with everything else.
But the way they gave the information to our CFO, they said that there were additional documentation fees and additional loan fees to do this type of loan, even though the amount would be the same, whether it were conventional or tax exempt bond.
And I agree 100% with what you're saying. I'm just saying those fees are me and you is what I think, but I think it's in the communication.
Anyone else? Yes.
And Ice Miller represents the village.
Yes, we're this thing called bond counsel. So our client is the village, but we're also looking out for because the benefit is for the borrower.
Right,
So
and there are additional legal fees on top of Ice Miller?
Well, we're not paying Ice Mill or
Right.
anything, but the ordinance that's
Oh,
before you
you're-
was prepared by Klein Thorpe, and
Okay.
and there's probably
We'll
a few
we'll
thousand
pay
dollars in that.
Kleinthorpe's fees on top of whatever fee you choose.
Right, we didn't charge 45,000. Ours, it is a
Okay.
very reasonable fee. We just had to prepare the basic documents.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, the way I understand it is in order to approve the ordinance providing for backing your bond issue, is that we're to get approximately a third, which is 15,000 plus our legal fees covered. Is that basically the way it's shaken out before we put it
That's
for
what
a
I'm
vote?
proposing, yes.
Does anybody else have any? Yes.
I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, go ahead.
So I'd like staff to prepare an ordinance providing the issuance for the Village of Burr Ridge, DuPage, Cook Counties, Illinois, not to exceed $3.5 million in revenue bonds, King Burrard House, Series 2018, authorizing the execution and delivery of financing agreement and related matters in connection therewith for a reduced fee of $15,000 plus village legal fees.
Just to clarify, the ordinance is prepared, so the motion would be to approve the ordinance.
Yes.
With the amendment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, yes.
1,000 plus legal fees.
Okay, I forgot what section it was. Yeah, so, yeah, move to approve the ordinance.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any comment on, yes?
Should there be any other fees that come along subsequent to our approval of this, we would assume that they'd be absorbed by the bank or by the King Brevard House or some other third party and not the village? That'd be a reasonable assumption. Do you want to add that into our motion?
Yes.
I'll second that
Language
motion.
is already in the document, so.
Make sure.
Right, I think he made that representation earlier, that they are indemnifying. Trustee Francis?
Yes.
I think he made that representation earlier, but it's
I memorialized
worth noting and
so that we
considering.
don't have any more surprise fees.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes?
My other thank you, Guy, for that, Trustee Francis, for that question. My other question then was, in terms of the fee, do we need to designate is this going in our general budget or in a pathway fund? Do we need to designate it at this time or not? Or just let it go in the general?
For now, to go into the general fund, and if during the budget process you want to designate it for something, or if you know something right now you want to designate it for, I think you could do that. Otherwise, put it in the general fund and put it in the budget that we're getting ready to prepare.
Anything else? No. Have a roll call?
Trustee Chiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Model?
Yes.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
6-0.
Motion
Thank you.
passes 6-0. Thank you. Resolutions, consideration of resolution determining the appropriateness of Class 6B status pursuant to the Cook County Real Property Classification Ordinance for real estate at 101 Tower Drive.
Yes, I'd like to have Evan Walter, Assistant to the Village Administrator, present this to the board.
Thank you. Again, this is 7A. This is Cook County 6B Tax Incentive Resolution at 101 Tower Drive. This is a tax incentive to support the new buyer of 101 Tower Drive, Midwest Associates Incorporated. Just to briefly provide a history of what 6B is. 6B is an economic incentive organized by Cook County. This is not a village program. The Cook County's Class 6B classification is designed to encourage industrial development throughout Cook County by offering a real estate tax incentive for the development of new industrial facilities, rehab of existing industrial structures, and the reutilization of abandoned buildings by assessing properties at lower multipliers, thus reducing the overall property tax bill at these properties. Properties that receive a 6B status are assessed at a lower rate for 12 years. It's 10% for the first 10, raises to 20, and then back to 25 for years 11 through 12, so it steps up at the end. Real estate is eligible for the 6B status if the local municipality expressly supports and consents to the filing of a Class 6B application with the county by lawful resolution or ordinance, and the attached resolution represents such consent. So this matter was considered by the EDC on November 20th. The EDC unanimously recommended for this. Again, this is to support redevelopment of an existing facility that has been abandoned for some time after the vacation of Global Luxury Imports at 101 Tower Drive. Midwest Associates they are a seller, of medical goods, medical equipment. We have a growing medical sector here in Burr Ridge, so they fit very nicely within our overall economic portfolio here. They also plan to offer educational courses to medical professionals within the facility to use their equipment. So again, orthopedic tools, orthopedic surgery items, very high skilled. Part of this will require a substantial rehabilitation of the building to accommodate all these uses. So again, this is a combination of sales as well as some educational opportunities. So this will be quite a robust business that we see come into Burr Ridge. I have met the property owner here tonight. I've also been discussing with their council for several weeks about this project. But again, this was approved, this was recommended for approval by the EDC at their previous meeting on November 20th. And if the board were to pass this resolution, it would then become part of the Cook County 6B application for Medwest. And that'll go to the county at some point in the future. Usually it takes about 6 months to receive a 6B, so this will be a few months down the road still. But if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Any questions?
Make a motion?
Oh, wait. Pursuant to what he said, is there anybody in the audience that has a comment? Yes.
So I just wanted some more.
Excuse me, can you-
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
I forgot, I haven't been here in a couple of weeks. Alice Crimpet, 7515 Drew. I just had a couple of questions now about the incentive again, is they pay 10%, can you say it again, Evan, what it's?
I'll just quickly review.
Okay, so it's.
So normally industrial properties in Cook County are assessed at 25% level. 10% of the it would then drop to 10% on the equalized value. So we'd have a lower multiplier. So the tax bill for the entire county then would go down.
Okay, so why does this property qualify when it's only been vacant for about a year? I mean, we haven't really, have they tried to sell it? I mean, does it qualify for anything else? You used the word distressed in the write-up from before, not here, I think it was, or I read distressed. So, I mean, it hasn't really been for sale for that long.
It's been for sale for about 6 months. Again, this is only part of the application. Ultimately, the body of record that ultimately approves or denies this is Cook County. However, they are ineligible to apply in any case without the village's support via resolution or ordinance. So this is actually not a village incentive to ultimately provide for. This is just part of their application. And of course, if the board denies it, then they're not eligible to move forward, but it is a prerequisite for 6Bs to get a village resolution or ordinance in support of it.
And so how are we gonna get tax money again from this, other than this reduced tax property rate?
We anticipate that this property will be a significant sales taxpayer in the
So
long
what are they,
term.
I didn't understand the sales, what are they gonna?
They'll be selling medical equipment.
So
from the
they're actually
facility.
selling equipment,
Yes.
okay. So I just was concerned because I just see it as we're just filling an empty building if we're not getting any revenue stream in. But if you think that this is gonna be something where there'll actually be money coming in, and will that balance out for the loss of the tax that we're getting?
Can I clarify that point?
Yes, could you?
There is no loss of revenue to the village. This incentive, our levy stays the same. So while they get a tax break, the rest of the people in their taxing body, which is Cook County quite large, will make up the difference. So the village actually loses no revenue, and by doing this, we get in the potential for a very large sales tax generator.
So this isn't anything, it's kind of like
Costs
a
us
TIF,
nothing.
but it's not really a
It
TIF.
costs us nothing to do it. We don't
Costs
lose any
nothing.
revenue, correct?
Okay. All right, I just, like I said, if there were no sales coming in to balance it out, I didn't think it would be worth it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Could I have a motion on the resolution?
I'd like to make a motion approving the resolution authorizing the appropriateness of Class 6B status pursuant to Cook County real property classification for 101 Tower Drive.
Second.
Any comments? Roll call?
Trustee Model?
Yes?
Trustee Skiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
6-0.
Motion passes. Under consideration, I'd like to have an update regarding the Sterigenics situation in Willowbrook.
Thank you, Trustee Pavesa. Since the village board's last meeting, there's been a number of actions and developments taken. First, on November 13th and 14th, the village completed its ambient air testing at 8 locations throughout Burr Ridge. A map of those locations was posted on our website. We expected to see test results last week, but we still don't have them to this moment, correct, Evan? We're very frustrated by that. But I believe the reason for that is that our consultant wants to incorporate the EPA test results into his report, which were published last week at about the same time that our consultant was to give us his report. So we don't have the final report as of yet. As I mentioned, the US EPA has been conducting its own air testing at locations in Willowbrook and one location in Burr Ridge, Gower Middle School. Those test results will be ongoing for a minimum of 3 months. They will be publishing test results twice a week once they begin receiving the results, and I understand they received their initial results last week, and those have been posted on the EPA website. The DuPage County Health Department is still trying to identify all private wells within a half a mile of Sterigenics. Anyone in that area that has not been contacted by DuPage County and has a private potable water well should contact the DuPage County Department of Public Health. We've received several press releases from different elected officials in the area. Also, at a hearing on December 6th, the 18th District Circuit Court considered petitions from Willowbrook and Darien to intervene in the lawsuit filed by the Illinois Attorney General and the DuPage County State's Attorney. That hearing was continued to April 11, 2019, due to a request from Sterigenics to move the case to federal court. Also, as I noted last week on December 7th, the US EPA posted its first results of its air monitoring program. And Evan, if there's anything else you want to add to that, please?
Yes, thank you, Doug. I just wanted to point out there are 3 stacks of documents in front of you that I prepared at the request of Trustee Francis. Staff has started binders to document all of the communications that we have been receiving throughout this case. Just there's so many letters and press releases and items of note that should be recorded with the trustees. So the first, it has a Burr Ridge letterhead on it. Those are just the continuation of previous documents. Those are all the official communications, studies, items of note from any agency that's communicated on this matter, including Sterigenics. Second stack is from the community group Stop Sterigenics. They provided me with 6 documents that they felt would be appropriate to add to the board's binder. I think that is titled Fact Checking Sterigenics, I believe is the first page. And finally was a report from the recent 2013 spill of ethylene oxide ethylene glycol at Sterigenics from 2013. This is in reference to Trustee Francis's request to see that report come forward. We had emailed that to the board last week, but I wanted to have that printed out just so you had it for your record. So again, that was the spill where they had the fine issued of $50,000. So those things are all in front of you. Again, we provided you with a binder at the October 2nd meeting, I believe, maybe October 1st. Those are just addendums to that ongoing binder. Any questions about anything in there, just let me know. I'll be happy to explain.
The question that everybody asks is, what's really happening and what can be done? Just for the residents, Willowbrook, Darien, and Burr Ridge is spending a lot of time and a lot of effort to try to get this thing under control and find out where we are. But sometimes people find it hard to believe that we're doing anything about it, especially when you have a $500 million corporation that has batteries of attorneys and can postpone just about anything, which is exactly what they did. The Attorney General finally finds suit against them, and they say they're not getting a good enough deal, so they got to move to federal court. Now it's not even going to be heard in April. I mean, this is just some of the things that frustrate us, and I'm sure it frustrates you people. Now, if anybody would like to make a comment, Yvonne?
I wasn't going to, but I will. I already made my comment. But on Sterigenics, I would just urge the Village of Burr Ridge to join the lawsuit filed by Lisa Madigan and State's Attorney Bob Berlin. I know Willowbrook and Darien have, And I would urge this community, which has many residents that have been impacted directly, many people in our community believe they've gotten cancer as a result of breathing in the toxic air over the last 34 years. And I think that if you did join that lawsuit, it would send a clear message to all the residents of Burr Ridge that you care, and that even if the lawsuit is delayed through the shenanigans of the big law firms that have been hired by Sterigenics until next year, at least we know that you've committed to doing what's right for us. Thank you.
Mark? Alice, Alice, you talked already about your subject. Jennifer?
Hello, I'm Jennifer Haupt. I've been up here before, recently. Here we are, over 100 days after we found out about Sterigenics increasing our community's risk for cancer. What have we learned? I've learned to pronounce your names correctly. We've learned that research links ethylene oxide exposure to cancer, miscarriage, birth defects, respiratory health issues, and neurological damage. At the EPA forum recently, Dr. Buchanan, the director of the Great Lakes Center for Children's Environmental Health, stated that no level of ethylene oxide is safe. We've learned that Sterigenics has self-reported their emissions for decades, and even so, admits to continuously dumping thousands and thousands of pounds of this toxin into our air. We've learned that this toxin is long-lasting in the atmosphere, but it's heavier than air, and it seems to be somewhat trapped inside, per Kevin Aikman's recent report at a state hearing, where he reported higher levels of ethylene oxide inside rather than outside due to the properties of the chemical. So let's be clear. There's only one major source of ethylene oxide in our air, and it's Sterigenics. We've learned that there were self-reported stack emission data, which they use to purport their commitment to safety, are truly meaningless. We don't have a record of this company's fugitive emissions or those emissions which have escaped other areas of their building and put our community at risk. We've learned that children between 0 to 2 exposed to carcinogens are at a 10 times increased chance of getting cancer. I sent my son to Harvester Preschool when he was 2 in 2015. Mr. Model, when I told you this earlier in our conversation today, you audibly shuddered. Why should the location of a preschool make someone audibly shudder at the thought? I will not send my children to Harvester Preschool until this issue is resolved. I now plan my children's activities based on the distance from this toxic air. School buses are being rerouted around areas that have shown heightened levels of ethylene oxide. I have friends choosing private schools because they do not want to send their children to Gower. And I have numerous friends looking to move. We now await conclusive results from the EPA, but the initial results are not comforting. I'd like to read what Michael Hawthorne recently reported in the Chicago Tribune. He said that the highest average level of ethylene oxide detected during a 24-hour period with the recent results was 6.62 micrograms per cubic meter of air, more than 3 times greater than the amount that the federal officials relied on earlier this year to calculate the risk. This is after all these safety measures that are supposed to comfort us. In the same article, Tammy Duckworth was quoted to say that we now have confirmation that despite Sterigenics' efforts To limit and scrub ethylene oxide emissions, the dangerous toxin remains a public health risk for citizens of Willowbrook and surrounding communities. The repercussions of the actions of this company have begun but are not over. We are starting to see many cancer victims file their personal suits, but it won't be the last of them. We know that it can take decades for the consequences of breathing toxic air to rear their ugly head. Picture these toxic molecules as bouncy balls continuously spewed from 15 feet in the air, heavy enough to sink to the earth, light enough to be blown by the wind past schools and parks. These toxic molecules do not stop at city limits. We cannot sit back and let other cities fight this fight for us. We need to stand united against this horrific track record and show residents that this kind of behavior by businesses will not be accepted. It's time for Burr Ridge to stand up for the health of its residents. Darien and Willowbrook have joined the Attorney General's lawsuit. Let's not be the last town in the area to take action this time. If we can't count on you to stand up for resident health, what can we count on?
Ellen?
It's been very well said.
Okay. Okay. Back at the board, any comments? Yes?
Yeah, wrote my name on that page right there.
There's another.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right.
I didn't see that, I'm sorry. My mistake.
No worries. Not the shy retired guy, of course.
Metal clip was hiding your name, sorry about that, Rick.
Just-
Are we good, Jimmy? Hello? I'm good. Great. Thank you. Good evening. Is this working? Hello? Well, I'll just speak loudly.
I think it is.
Acting Mayor Belveza, welcome to your new job. I only wish it was for 9 weeks instead of 3. I do have a couple of old points I want to address today. I communicated a little earlier today about a question I asked several meetings ago.
Remember.
And I did get a couple of quick responses. And the responses were directing me to either talk to Tri-State or to talk to the chief. And this was, what is the plan in the event that an evacuation or emergency involving ethylene oxide occurs? And I don't have much to add to the response that ended with, we don't have an answer. I suggest you FOIA Tri-State to get the information. Well, I understand that that's the reality of today. And I think that's a really unfortunate outcome that in the world we've created today, a citizen that wants to know how to behave, how to react in the event of an emergency, in order to figure out what the plans are, can only get the information going through a government process of a Freedom of Information request. And I think that's a sorry commentary for government today. It should be a simple question. Perhaps we'll be able to do something about it in the upcoming decade. I'd also like to address the board about the detection equipment that I've been able to discover that's used in evaluating the concentration of ETO in the air. And of all of the testing procedures identified by NIOSH and by EPA, in fact, the testing procedure used recently at the preliminary results could only test down to, I have to find it, test down to 0.08 micrograms. And that is far, far, far too insensitive to ensure safety from ETO. There's a long distance between 0.08 micrograms and where the cancer risk drops to simply 1 additional cancer in a million. So we have a problem with a chemical that is so dangerous, and we lack the ability that, as far as I can find today, we cannot detect it at levels we need to detect it And to me, that's more than enough to say you can't have the chemical in use in the community if you can't test for it at concentrations that are dangerous to human beings. So that's what I've got to say tonight, and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Well, is there anybody else on the board have any comments on this matter?
I was just gonna say, I'm frustrated. I thought we would have our test results. I know you expressed frustration, but we've been waiting. We've been telling people, do you have any preliminary? I mean, have you seen anything? I know you're not the consultant. I mean, was our equipment even at the proper level of testing? I mean, is there anything we can tell folks tonight here? They've been waiting.
We did get a paragraph from
Yeah,
GHD.
I can say that we basically got a paragraph saying that we're seeing kind of the same thing that EPA got. The caveat is that our consultant is using slightly more sensitive machines, testing equipment than what the EPA used. So they can test at a slightly lower level, slightly more sensitive level than the EPA could. So we saw from the EPA's test that there were 6 out of the 8 registered no detection, non-detectable ND on the map. Again, that doesn't mean that there's no ETO. The EPA even admits that. Just because we can't detect it through our machine testing does not mean that there is none present. However, we're hoping that through the use of more sensitive machines, we'll be able to use, or at least get more confirmation that that level is lower than the EPA knows, or if we are able to see something, we'll know where that window is between our level of non-detection and theirs. So either way, we'll know a little bit more. Hopefully we get more non-detectables, which means that the levels are lower. But at the same time, we just have not seen any actual numbers where I can go, it is absolutely 30% less based on their data. They've only heard comparable. And as Mr. Morton has said, at that level, comparable, very small margins matter. So truly, we're just gonna have to wait until what the numbers are. And I concur with Doug that we were told last week on the results that we don't have them, so.
And we don't have to wait for another meeting to show those results, right? They'll be put on the website right away.
Oh, yes, we're gonna put it on the website, yes. Yes.
And Ms. Euler, do you know anything about the lawsuit that residents are referring to? I think it's filed by...
Only that we'll receive a decision from the federal district court on April 11th regarding the motion to move the action from state court to federal court. And in the meantime, there are also 2 motions pending to intervene from Willowbrook and Darien, which haven't been granted yet, but they're before the court.
So far those towns have not joined the lawsuit. They have attempted to, it's pending.
For permission.
Just a comment to reiterate to the residents, the board is doing everything legally possible that we can do to resolve the problem with Sterigenics. And if people get the Tribune, they had front page articles on Friday and Sunday's Tribune regarding it. And in reading it, the thing that scared me is prior to their new scrubbing system that Sterigenics put in a year and a half, 2 years ago, for the previous 20, 25 plus years, they just blew the stuff into the atmosphere. So that is very, very scary. So people do know about it, and people are doing it, and we're doing everything we can, but just like I said, mentioned here, we get our attorney general to file something, and they move it to federal court with a 3-4 month delay. And I'm sure that's probably gonna be their modus operandi, because people are now paying attention, and they are under a lot of scrutiny, and we'll keep our pressure up. I just wanted to reiterate that. Any other comments? Yes, Guy?
I was disappointed to learn from the US EPA that when they began their testing, they announced the date of their testing was going to begin and the locations of their testing. Disappointed to learn that. I was also disappointed to learn that Village of Burr Ridge mentioned that they would be testing in November, and they published the test locations. I'll give you an analogy what that is like. It's like my son's college fraternity being put on double secret probation for 6 months, a semester, and they have to all be on their best behavior for 6 months so that they don't have their chapter rescinded. Much like Sterigenics would be on their best behavior to minimize the emissions, the fugitive emissions, which can't be measured, minimize the emissions from their scrubbers, make sure the scrubbers are clean and operating properly, the glycols are moved consistently and frequently, so that there is a minimum amount of emissions emitted to the atmosphere and affecting the surrounding areas. So I think in the future, if we do continue to do testing, we should do it anonymously and not announce it, keep it private, so that they are not on warning and that they won't have their charter rescinded.
Can I just clarify something there? The village did not announce the locations or the time of our test until after the testing was done. We did mention the month of November, but we did not mention a specific date, nor did we mention the location.
That's correct.
until after the
We
testing
did not mention the date. I said that. The date was not mentioned, but the month was mentioned. So, okay. So they were on notice in November that 2 agencies are going to be looking for their emissions. And I think that was letting the cat out of the bag, my opinion.
Anything else? Yes.
Can we consider joining the lawsuit?
Pardon?
Can we consider joining the lawsuit?
We're going to talk about that in closed session.
Okay.
Okay, next item is B, consideration of Plan Commission recommendation to deny a variation from the zoning ordinance to reduce the required rear yard setback for a property in the R2A residential district from 60 feet to 45 feet, B03 2018 8200 Steepleside Drive, Bart.
Trustee Paveza, this petition has been withdrawn.
Is this the one that was withdrawn?
Right, they
Okay.
intend to refile, but when they do, they will have to publish new notice and go through all the legal notice requirements.
We don't have to vote on anything, it's just already been
No action
withdrawn.
will be taken.
Right.
Right.
Okay, D, consideration to rescind approval of an ordinance to remand petition to the Plan Commission, ordinance number 834-21-18, an ordinance approving a variation from the Village of Burr Ridge zoning ordinance to permit a detached accessory structure taller than 15 feet in mean height and larger than 2,500 square feet in an area at a property in an R2B residential district, VO5 2018, 15W069 and 15W081 91st Street, Calalanzo.
This was asked to be on the agenda, I believe, by Trustee Francis at the last meeting. Staff is happy to answer any questions you may have.
So the reason I had asked to have this on the agenda is that some piece of misinformation was given to the Plan Commission. It may or may not have affected the outcome of their decision, number one. Number two, no hardship was demonstrated by the property owner, no hardship with the land. Not personal hardship or financial hardship, but no hardship with the physical properties of the land, the contours, the shape of the lot, et cetera. Nothing was demonstrated. So I would ask that this be remanded back to the plan, rescinded, and that it be remanded back to the Plan Commission.
And they send this back to us where they want to rescind their approval, right?
No, I'm asking that we rescinded our approval and that we remanded back to the Plan Commission.
What about wait, yes, Mark? Or, say something. Yeah.
Mark Thomas, 7515 Drew. Just a quick thing I want to bring up is originally when this was presented to the Plan Commission, they thought they were approving a building that was 18% over in size for the combined allowed accessory buildings on the property, and in fact it's 81% over. So it's not a small amount. This is a huge discrepancy, and it was an accident. It was an error. Also, I'd like to point out is that someone made the comment about it's a large piece of property, so we should allow a larger building. Well, the fact is, on an R2B piece of property that is actually 30,000 square feet, the combined buildings would allow 2,175 square feet. But because of the size of the property that the petitioner had, he was going to enjoy a 49% increase in the building size, which would bring him up to, I believe it was 3,250 square feet. So they did get something. They got an additional 1,000 square feet because of the size of their property. So basically, I just wanted to make those points, just that it's a really large variation. It's a large building for a residential area. And I really think that this should go back to the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, I'm fine to remand it back to the Planning Commission on the basis of the error that was made, and I understand that, and that makes sense, and I think they should have another bite at the apple. I just want to make clear that I understood that the particularly legal reason for the variance was there was an unusual thing with the lot, in response to Trustee Francis's comments, that the railroad line divided the lot in two, and that it was a very unusual property, and that was the legal basis for the variance. So because of that, which is why I voted yes on it last time, that was what I understood was the legal basis for the variance. But I do agree with there was an error made and the Plan Commission should get another look at it.
Yes. Tony.
Doug, do you have? Okay, I met with the petitioner to talk to him about his property. And so I'd like to share with you some photos of what his property looked like before he did his rehabilitation and construction and cleaning up. So here you can see a trailer and a wet bike that who knows who that belonged to. Next slide. Again, more garbage there that he had to clean up. Next slide, please. More garbage, bottles and tubes and what have you. Next, looks like, I don't know, a sewer cap or something like that that he had to remove from the property. I mean, it looked like it was a neighbor's dumping ground there. The next slide, that's inside of a building there with garbage in it. The next slide, that's a picture of one of the buildings that he removed. That's what the neighbors were looking at, that he removed. The next slide, I don't know if that's a fridge and more garbage that he had to remove. The next slide, garbage. Next slide, that's a chicken coop that was completely dysfunctional, and he had taken that down as well. The next slide, this is a picture of part of the 600 tires that he removed from the lot. The next slide, it's them removing the tires. The next slide, more tires. The next slide, there's a car frame there. It might be a Corvette, I don't know, but that had to get removed. Next slide. That dark area in the middle it's actually a truck that had to be removed. The next slide. And there's the final piece. He had to remove this junk there. And he did that. He made all these improvements to his land because this is a house that he's moving to, that he wants to retire with his wife and raise his family. The variance in question was approved by this board on October 8th of 2018, which is over 2 months ago. Having relied upon the board's decision of 2 months ago, he began his improvements to the land. He indicated to me that he's already started the process to build a structure that has been approved. As of today's date, he reported to me that he has spent $15,000 of non-refundable payments. If he hadn't had undue hardship before, he certainly has one now. In light of this, it's my recommendation that the variance stand. I do agree that this issue should be, I do not agree that this issue should be remanded back to the Planning Commission. The erroneous information provided to the Planning Commission and this board was not the petitioner's fault. Further, the mistake was not egregious, and the consequence of the mistake is one that will not harm the village or its residents immediately surrounding the property. The petitioner has done nothing but to improve the estate-sized property. that was once home to insurmountable amount of garbage, which I showed you, hundreds of rubber tires, multiple inhabitable and dangerous structures, frames of cars and trucks, which are all a hazard to the village. I no longer wish to be a nuisance to this resident, as he has followed procedures in the letter of the law as was cited to him. I find it perplexing that no one has come to complain about the condition of the property, of what it was like in that deplorable condition. The petitioner has cleaned and improved the 5 acres of land, and no one has commended him for that action. I do that now. And with respect to the allegation of impropriety of a planning commissioner, I respectfully ask that in the future that you perform the requisite due diligence before making public comments that turn out to be false, as was in this case. Evan Walter and Doug Pollock are always at your disposal. Thank you.
Any other, yes?
Doug, when was the property annexed into the village from the county?
2018, or 2017.
And what efforts did we make to enforce the cleanup?
Pardon?
What efforts did we make to enforce the cleanup subsequent to its annexation?
No.
So code in the village is a matter of complaints. We do not unilaterally as staff go out and enforce things like cleaning up your yard. Only when a complaint is made does then staff go out and spend time and resources on adjudicating things like this. Had a complaint been made, this certainly would have been a code complaint. But having been to the property, it's much cleaner now than it was, just to the property owner's credit. So,
thank you.
Any other questions? Yes?
I'd just like to say that if this gentleman's put in so much time and effort to beautify Burr Ridge, or his resident, then, you know, we should help him out and not penalize him for doing that.
Yes.
So I make a motion to deny the consideration to rescind the approval of an ordinance and deny remanding the petition back to the Planning Commission. Ordinance number 834-2118.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Well, we could do it that way, or if there isn't a motion and a second, and then a 2/3 vote, which is required to rescind, then there would be no return to the Plan Commission. So it doesn't require you to take action to deny this. There would have to be a 2/3 approval for this.
So just
to move
no,
forward.
nothing. Right. So I rescind my motion.
I'll make the motion to ask that this variation approval be rescinded, and that the matter be remanded back to the Plan Commission.
Is there a second?
Okay.
Well, if there's no second, then it passes. Is that right?
No, it dies.
There's no motion then.
There's no action to revisit the ordinance that was passed.
Okay.
Approving the variation.
Okay, so.
Variation will stand.
We're still on the subject?
Pardon?
Are we still on the subject here?
Yes.
Yes. There is no consequence to the zoning. I've been assured that this doesn't leave a consequence to the residents in the village of changing zoning code or anything like that. Is that correct? That's what I was assured. It doesn't set a dangerous precedent for the village. That was another thing the staff assured me.
Well, I think if you agree, as you said, that the property is unique, for those reasons that you stated, then it would only set a precedent for an identical property.
And the village made an error.
Situation.
So unless that precedent exists again, there's no precedence.
Thank you for the clarification.
That's it, okay. Next item, consideration of amendments to the Economic Development Committee meeting calendar, charter, and composition.
Yes, I would like to have Evan Walter, our staff liaison to the Economic Development Committee, provide an overview of what the committee has recommended. I also want to commend the Economic Development Committee and Evan and Janet Kowal as well for their work together in looking to revamp and significantly upgrade our efforts in economic development. with that, I'll turn it over to Evan.
Thank you. I'd also like to recognize Mr. Beltran. Andre is our new management analyst. He's been very helpful in providing background information on these topics. So it's really been a team effort with a lot of parties here. Getting back to the issue at hand, this is 8D. This is an amendment, proposed amendment to the Economic Development Committee's meeting calendar, charter, and composition. So for as long as I can tell, the EDC has been meeting bi-monthly on the third Tuesday in the evening. On the third Wednesday. At this time, the members of the EDC have expressed interest in making their committee more proactive and being less of a reporting body and more of a proactive planning body in the realm of the Plan Commission or the Pathway Commission or really any other village board committee that is in existence at this point. And to do so would require a couple of amendments, the first of which would be to meet more often. So the amendment to the calendar would mean that the meeting calendar would go from the third Tuesday to the third Wednesday, and also moving from an evening meeting at 7 p.m. to a daytime meeting at 9 a.m. Now, a 9 a.m. public meeting sounds a bit irregular, but we actually did quite a bit of research on other communities that do this exact same thing with their Economic Development Committee. The purpose of the daytime meeting is to allow for more diverse groups of people to meet during the workday. Oftentimes, when the village solicits feedback or goes out and looks for volunteers, an evening meeting can seem intimidating to a lot of people. A lot of the residents and business owners have a lot of evening commitments as is, and a daytime committee meeting was seen as more suitable to schedules. More people can join, more people can attend more meetings regularly. And so this is one of the first amendments proposed by the EDC for the board, is to, again, go from 6 meetings a year to 12 meetings a year, and then to meet on the third Wednesday of every month at 9 a.m. Again, it'd be a public meeting. An agenda and a packet would be published as noticed, as usual. But again, this would be a daytime meeting going forward. Second, the EDC proposes to amend its charter to the following, and I'm just going to read it just for the record. The mission of the Economic Development Committee, EDC, is to grow a stronger business climate by being an active partner with businesses, investors, and residents. The EDC shall strengthen economic development in the village by developing business retention, expansion, and attraction programs, the creation and implementation of economic development plans and policies, being business ambassadors to the community, coordinating with other governments on projects, and submitting an annual economic development position report to the village board at the beginning of each fiscal year. So this amendment really does two things. It creates duties for the EDC that are really currently only implied. Right now, the EDC is generally charged with economic development advice to the village board, but provides no real impetus as to what it's actually supposed to be doing. The committee members felt that this charter would provide for a more proactive, more explicit delegation of responsibilities and duties to the EDC, which are not altogether clear or present right now in the current charter. This also provides the opportunity for a written goal of an annual report being created to inform and advise the Board of Trustees the village's annual economic position. Economic development can change quite quickly, and providing the village with an ongoing report is something that was seen as a positive from the EDC, having an understanding that with the budgetary process comes understanding your economic position within comparable communities. So these are some of the main items that come out of the charter. The third item, and this is the final item, as the EDC expands its charter to include additional responsibilities and become more proactive, as well as simply meeting more often, the EDC proposed to amend its committee composition by expanding from 6 members to 11 members. Again, that's 5 members and a chair to 10 members and a chair. The committee members would continue to primarily be chosen from residents as well as non-residents who own or operate businesses within the village. This larger body would allow for a greater degree of expertise and diversity to be congregated within the EDC, allowing a more diverse array of opinions and feedback to be put into this type of body. Again, trying to be more proactive and trying to be more inclusive in its input toward the board. At this time, there are no additional appointments to the EDC being made. If these are approved, the search for new candidates will begin when appropriate. And it should also be noted that since the resignation of Mayor Straub, we'd only had 1 meeting, and we do not have a current permanent chairperson for the EDC at this time. So it's a bit of a transition time for the EDC. However, the members that are currently on the board, or on the committee, felt that these would be appropriate steps to help make the EDC a stronger body, a more well-versed body, and simply be a better benefit to the board and its decision-making powers. And I'll be happy to answer any questions about the conversation at large.
Sounds like you've done your due diligence.
Yeah, we did a lot. This has been, we've been thinking about these changes for about 6 months now. The comment was made by several members that the EDC was simply a reporting body. The members would arrive every other month and information would be given to them. Very rarely would they be able to provide any proactive planning advice, again, advice and recommendation to the board. And these changes would be part of really a holistic and comprehensive view about what the EDC is and what the EDC does, and really provide a stronger voice for economic development matters writ large in the village.
I would just also like to add that this is in line with a number of the strategic goals adopted by the village board a year ago related to economic development, and that's really what got this going, was your statement, your goals, several of your goals related to economic development. And that's when I sat down with Evan and we started looking at what we can do. The Economic Development Committee being our main committee related to all economic development related goals and programs.
Yes, Tony.
So I sit on the board, and a pleasure sitting with Zach Model on the board as well for the Economic Development Committee. I want to thank Evan for leading this charge and making this change. And I think with change is how we become better, bigger, and stronger. And I like the idea of changing our meeting times to a morning meeting and having them more often. And I think we'll get more attendance, we'll get more intellectual capital, and we'll have a little more movement within our business community here in Burr Ridge. So I'm excited about it. Thank you, Evan.
Yes.
And thank you, Trustee Sciabba. I enjoy working with you on this committee as well. We get a lot done, and I think this committee has so many opportunities. This village is truly special. We have so many opportunities, so I'm excited that we can kind of start catapulting that, start accelerating that, and take advantage of the opportunity that we have that will benefit the residents, benefit the tax base. I've always talked about broadening the tax base, and to me, this is the way to do it, and it lessens the property tax burden on residents, which is very important to me, that we fund all the wonderful services of the village, and we do it in a way that doesn't put the burden truly all on the residents. So I'm excited about that, and again, the day meetings, getting more business people involved, the ones who are going to be really partners with the village, this is a wonderful thing, so thank you, and I look forward to working with you all on this.
Any other questions? Well, we'll need a motion to accept the amendments to the EDC's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Meeting in second, is there any questions? Roll call.
Trustee Model?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Sciappa?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Beza?
Yes.
Trustee
Matal?
Yes.
6-0.
Okay, motion passes. Next item is consideration of Economic Development Committee recommendation to award a contract for marketing service to Kidvit of Chicago, Illinois, in the not-to-exceed amount of $350,000.
This also is related to the 2017-19 strategic goals for the village. One of the goals was to review and develop or enhance the branding of the village in conjunction with going out for an RFP for our hotel restaurant marketing services. And Evan has again been working with Janet Kowal and Andres Beltran from our staff in seeking proposals, and I'll let Evan take it from here and explain the process and the proposal that has been recommended by the Economic Development Committee.
Thank you. Again, as Village Administrator Pollack had said, this is really coming out of a strategic goal for the board to define Burr Ridge, to understand what our position is within the regional map of the Chicagoland area. This started with a request from the EDC to re-examine our marketing services. This began back in August. We issued an RFP with the board's approval for professional marketing services related to the village's hotel and restaurant marketing plans. We received 5 responses. We whittled that down between staff and former Mayor Straub down to 2 finalists, Kivett and a company called Marketing Partnerships International. Ultimately, Kivett was chosen due to their experience with major hotel brands and their diverse array of services available to the village and our hotel and restaurant partners. 2 hotels within the village also provided written support for recommending the award be given to Kivett. Again, the array of services that we had found, anything from review management to a lot of in-kind services, graphic design that we did not necessarily receive with our current provider. These are things that are all built in with our contract here with Kivett. Again, the budget is $350,000 funded solely for the Hotel Motel Fund. We also recommend that this award, if made, coincide with our fiscal year, May 1st, 2019. A lot of contracts have already been signed for the spring season for a lot of our current marketing. Undoing those would require quite a bit of work. It would require a lot of money to change hands, a lot of accounting to happen. And we want to make sure that we continue to make sure that we do at least have our existing marketing plan going forward to allow Kivett opportunity to provide a transition between the current provider of our marketing plan to the new provider of our marketing plan. The only item we request direction on is the length of a contract with the preferred firm. Just for the record, we've generally adopted 1-year contracts with this type of marketing consultant partner, and the board always has the ability to extend that on a rolling basis as they see fit. Kivett's representatives are here. I'd just like to invite them up to the podium just to answer any questions you may have, just to get to know them a little bit better. Yes, I'm sorry.
Question for you, Evan. Just to clarify, maybe you said it and I didn't hear, but the $350,000, a lot of this comes out of the hotel motel tax fund, right? This is not out of the village general fund. Can you clarify how that
Correct.
works?
Thank you for the clarification. This is solely being funded out of the Hotel Motel Fund, $350,000. Hotel Motel Fund is, we'll just say, one of our healthiest funds. We see very healthy 6-digit revenues come in every year, over $500,000. We can also solely spend hotel motel revenues on promoting overnight tourism within the village. So this plan, again, really focusing on our hotels and restaurants, is an appropriate expenditure out of this fund. It promotes out-of-town residents of other parts of the state and the country to come to Burr Ridge to stay, to eat at our fabulous restaurants, and really experience Burr Ridge. And we've had a lot of success with our current program. However, we had been with our current provider for about 8 years, and it was seen as time to just re-examine what our current provider was offering.
First, I wanted to say great job with leading this charge. And second, so is it like a flat fee, $350,000, or do they get a percentage of what they bring in?
I'll let the payees answer.
Sure. Well, first, introduce myself to those I haven't met. Akeem Anderson, Kivett digital expert with deep expertise in the hotel and restaurant industry, both nationally and internationally. So.
I'm Jeff Phillips. I'm a general manager of the Chicago office of Kivett.
I'm sorry, you had a question.
My question was, is it just a flat fee of $350,000, or you get a percentage of what you bring in?
So essentially how we structured it is that we push most of that money toward the media, and then a part of our fee would be our time to develop some of the marketing material and just kind of manage the media and optimize it as it goes in and out of market. So the $55,000 you see outlined in the presentation that we share with you guys is a part of that ongoing fee, and then the rest of it will go direct to market and media.
That's included in the 350.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Yes, that's all.
Not
yeah,
a
it's
job.
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
And I just want to further comment that, thank you again for coming here today. This is now, I think, the 3rd or 4th time I've gotten to meet you all here, because we have gone through, we've reviewed this. First of all, Evan had the group of several contractors, whittled it down to a few. We had an open meeting where several of the trustees and Economic Development Committee members were invited to participate. So we heard from you as well as one of the other finalists. We were able to listen to both presentations. And then we had an Economic Development Committee, again, where we reviewed the presentations as well of the 2 finalists, and the Development Committee recommended Kivett, and I felt good about Kivett as well. So it's good to have you here, but this isn't the first time we've reviewed all this. It's been looked at fairly extensively.
Is there any questions that the board has for these gentlemen in regards to this purchase of their services? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The thing is, the vote is a consideration of the Economic Development Committee recommendation to award a contract for marketing service to Kidwood in the not-to-exceed amount of $350,000. And just to reiterate what's been said, this amount in no way is absorbed by the residents. This comes out of the motel, restaurant tax service that we, that the restaurants provide. Any questions?
This is for 1 year of services, and this is for a 1 year contract, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And we'll be back again a year from now, we're possibly renewing it or
Hopefully.
whatever. Okay, thank you. I don't know if that was mentioned or not.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and second. Any other question? Roll call.
Trustee Chiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yep.
Trustee Mitchell?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Milo?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
6-0.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next item, consideration of approval of funds to conduct feasibility studies and economic impact analysis of a downtown sports facility in an amount not to exceed $75,000. Yes.
Yes, this is a unique opportunity presented to the village by the DuPage Convention and Visitors Bureau, and I will have Evan present the details.
All right, thank you, Doug. Again, this is quite a unique opportunity, just kind of a nod to the new economic development proactiveness that we're starting to see from the village overall. These types of ideas come forward. It's nice to be able to present these to the public. So again, this is consideration of funding to approve funds to conduct feasibility and economic impact analysis of a downtown sports facility in an amount not to exceed $75,000. I just want to provide a quick background on where I'm talking about. Everything in economic development is the site and the location. Location. So what we're talking about, we'll call it the TCF site. It's 800 Burr Ridge Parkway, but it's the entire block and sole building currently owned and occupied by TCF Bank across from the Village Center. Again, this is about 14.5 acres of mostly vacant land, and we're going to exclude the building from our discussion tonight just because that's owned by TCF as is the whole block. And we're really just discussing the land tonight. The land is about 14.5 acres, as I said, but again, the vast majority of it is currently vacant or covered with surface parking, so not a lot of buildings on this particular site. This is a premium infill site in the Chicagoland suburbs. There are very rare opportunities where there are even 5 acres in a downtown site like this in a community such as Burr Ridge. Oftentimes it's less than an acre or an outmoded building, so there's very little infill like this in the western suburbs, really the Chicagoland region. You have to go very far out to see a site like this close to the downtown or the highway in this location. So I just want to provide some geospatial context. Again, the site we're talking about is the red outline. Again, it's surrounded by McClintock, Lincolnshire, and Burr Ridge Parkway. So it's a very unique site. So there's some current policy and direction that I want to talk about regarding the board, the Economic Development Committee, and the comp plan before we move forward. There were 4 strategic goals that can broadly be identified as being part of this particular economic development opportunities. Again, from your strategic goals, the first is really identifying development opportunities for the TCF property. It's long been known that this property is one of the most, if not the most important parcels in Burr Ridge in terms of our economic development future. And identifying the right opportunity for this site is extremely important for the village. Second and third together really are diversify village revenues and attract revenue-generating businesses. It's very important to identify things that will benefit the village financially, but also not necessarily rely on any one stream of revenue. So a restaurant really has place of eating sales tax as well as sales tax in general. That's 2 streams. This type of opportunity could have 4 or 5 different types of revenue opportunities. Again, primarily that's property, sales, place of eating, and hotel motel. These are the primary revenue streams that we could see coming out of a site like this. And then lastly, define Burr Ridge. Burr Ridge, just on the strength of its hotels, hotels are an extremely important part of our economic industry here. We're right next to the nexus of 55, 294, and 355, as well as 25 minutes from 2 major airports in the Midwest. So travel is, whether we like it or not, a big part of our economy here in ways that other towns simply do not have. We have 5 fabulous hotels. These are really an asset to the village. They provide us with a lot of benefit. The Economic Development Plan identifies retail and entertainment uses as being the preferred use for the TCF site. Now, that's kind of intentionally broad, but again, retail and entertainment uses, I think entertainment has long been a lacking use that we do not have enough of in town. Finally, the comprehensive plan, the document that ultimately dictates all land use in the village and all policies support. It talks about a mixed-use complement to the village center. So the village center, primarily retail and restaurants, some sort of mixed use that will complement and help that property better perform. So just quickly, I want to touch on the development background of this. So the DCVB, of which we're a member, that's the DuPage County Convention and Visitors Bureau. They independently commissioned a sports tourism market assessment study in 2017 to analyze DuPage County's sports facility inventory and its potential for development and growth. So they took all the current facility operations in the DuPage County region and found that they were pretty lacking. There are not many facilities that are of any real size and scope that can book real tournaments, real overnight opportunities for the village in any sense. They also found several other findings talking about the market of sports facilities in the Northern Illinois region. First is that there's really no clear industry leader in the region. The closest true competitors are in Rockford and Indianapolis. You may have heard about the Sports Factory in Rockford, just opened, I think, last year on the river. It's a fantastic development, but again, it's in Rockford. If we can compare Rockford to Burr Ridge, I'm not going to negatively recruit against Rockford, but Burr Ridge really is a one-of-a-kind place located within a world-class city. We have certain built-in advantages that they do not. As I said, there are many minor facilities in existence, but really none have the capacity to generate any real economic impact for the towns that they're in. The second is that a facility located in the DuPage County area would have access to trade area of over 30 million residents. We're going to define the trade area the same way that the sports study did, which is 240 miles. So within that 240 miles, there are over 30 million residents. It's one of the highest densities in any region in the country overall. Due to our central location in the Midwest, DuPage County has competitive advantage over more isolated and less attractive destinations. Again, DuPage County has very high quality of life and a very positive image both in the Midwest and nationally. When people come here, they go, this is a clean area, this is a very upstanding area, it has a very stable economy, there are lots of things to do in DuPage County. And so the image of DuPage County tourism, as DCVB will tell you, is very positive. People have a very high approval rating, for lack of a better word, of tourism and DuPage County overall, those two things connected. Again, we're trying to limit our conversation here to an indoor sports facility. There are 4 major sports that would really be housed in such a facility or be attracted to use this type of facility: basketball, volleyball, gymnastics, and cheerleading. So within that trade area of 30 million residents, we found through the study that there were over 3 million active participants just in these 4 sports. So we know there are lots of people, but we also can tell that there are lots of people who actually play the sports that this sports facility would benefit from and be primarily marketed to. So again, quite a few people within our trade area we can go after with this type of thing. At this point, DCVB began an outreach process to its member communities, again, which we are a member of. The inquiry was really, is there any opportunity to have such a facility in your town? Now, staff not wanting to close off any doors before we could definitively say no or yes, we simply said, yes, we'll look at this, we'll consider it in-house and just determine what we can feel from the market overall. The first step really was to identify what are the major components of this type of development. Again, talking about an indoor sports facility. The first really is the sports facility itself. We're going to define this as 8 to 12 basketball courts convertible to other activities such as volleyball, gymnastics, cheerleading, again, any of those indoor-based, gym-based activities that you can think of. But this would also be convertible to other activities such as meeting and convention space. One of the things that we've also been lacking, and I know we've talked about in the past, is convention space. When we lost Falls Event Center, that was really a big part of the Estancia development, to have that meeting space, that state-of-the-art facility that we could convert during the week. And so having these types of things, both sport and meeting and convention, will allow for a 7-day facility, making it competitive all days of the week, all months of the year, year-round. Second item is really a built-in hotel, a hotel under the same roof. It's very important in the meeting planning industry to have a hotel be connected to your primary meeting space. Things are booked or not booked based on whether you have a hotel connected to such a facility. So we've identified a hotel as being part of this overall development process, as being a critical component of it. We've identified something like an Embassy Suites, something family-friendly, something that we don't already have as well as being part of this process. One of the third things that we've identified as being important is a parking deck. Now, parking decks sometimes get a bad rap. People see parking decks and they go, that's a waste of space. You're creating opportunities for parking. But at the same time, parking decks today can really be designed to look just like buildings. One of the things that we've talked about a lot is the parking deck design of the village center. If you don't really look, you can really not tell that the parking deck is there based on the back of it. Even when you drive right past it, it's hard to tell that that facility is actually just not an extension of the retail. It really is a parking structure. So it's a good example of what I'm talking about. And the parking deck would be used to really service the primary users of the facility, the hotel, as well as the indoor sports facility, as well as other development. There will be outlot developments should this be developed or studied in any further capacity. When something like this were to be built in town, we would see an opportunity for additional restaurants, entertainment, other things that can be built on the TCF property as well as within the village center that we don't currently have. So this will be an economic spur for other properties beyond just itself. Second step that staff did was we went out and interviewed the development community. We said, what do you think about this idea? Is this crazy? We wanted to get that kind of first step feedback from some key developers who we knew had experience building hotels, building sports facilities, could really put the nails in the wood where we needed to have them built. The feedback was really including the following. The location in the region is unbeatable. Again, as I said, our location in the Chicagoland region is second to none. Access to 55, 294, 355, and the airport's unbeatable. We've got about 500,000 cars passing between the two I-55 interchanges on a daily basis, another 150,000 projected in 5 years with the widenings. Also being 25 minutes from both airports, we have international appeal. People can get here from anywhere to O'Hare. Pretty much every state in the Midwest can be reached within a 5-hour drive, and that's just about as far as you can go regularly on this type of facility. I said earlier that 30 million live within 240 miles, an additional 17 million within the next 60 miles. So within 300 miles, we're almost at 50 million residents. So we have quite a big trade area that we can market to. Those markets include Milwaukee, Detroit, Indianapolis, St. Louis, Louisville, Cincinnati, Madison, Toledo, Grand Rapids, and Fort Wayne. So we can reach a lot of markets from Burr Ridge fairly easily. Another comment was that a downtown suburban location would be very unique and attractive in the sports facility market and would be very family friendly. That's one thing that came back again and again was Burr Ridge is seen as a very family friendly place. It's a safe place. It's a place that is well designed. It has good access. There are things to do. You feel active in Burr Ridge. We had developers from out of state talk about our concert series. Again, that's the thing we're known for is that friendliness, that family attitude that we have here. The location directly adjacent to the village center was also seen as extremely attractive because there's a lot of built-in things to do at that point. Usually in this type of situation, an indoor facility is built first, and then hotels and restaurants and all the like come after. But this would actually be the last piece of the puzzle, should it be studied further, so we have a lot of the things already built in that are desirable for this community. Another comment was this would definitely diversify the hotel brands within the village, thus making our overnight tourism position even stronger. Again, we have one full service at the Marriott. We've got a couple of other hotels like Hampton and Crown. This would bring in the ability to have a suite type hotel, an upscale hotel potentially, and really diversify our hotels. Finally, the parking deck enhances the options for neighborhood and site design in ways that surface parking simply cannot. One thing that staff has talked about is the opportunity of moving Pace into this deck. Right now, Pace is just kind of an outlet right now behind County Line Square. It's not the most productive use for that site. The ability to use a deck, we could potentially put Pace in that facility, build a bus station within there, just allow for a lot more seamless design, and just really give our residents a benefit in their ability to use that as a transit-oriented development. So that was actually seen as a very high positive in ways that parking decks not normally are. Last slide. If approved, village staff would partner with the DCVB to create the RFP to identify a consultant to perform simultaneous 3-phase studies on the feasibility study, an economic impact study, and a hotel capacity study. We need to understand how many more hotels we might need if there were to be built. One thing I want to highlight is that this action commits the village to no further any actions or financial commitments beyond the study of the proposed development. This action tonight does not put you in the pickle where you need to buy land, hire architects, build a facility, anything like that. This is really only to study the option further. What would it look like? Could it happen here? One of the reasons that we're bringing this to you tonight instead of in January when we had planned was an opportunity for a state grant. Again, the ask is for $75,000 to study this proposal, but the DuPage County Convention and Visitors Bureau has identified a grant that would reimburse us for half of that money that we would expend if we have approval to expend the funds by the end of the year. Now, we don't have that grant in hand now, however, we're told by DCVB that that is a likely scenario. Just a very quick calendar as to what we're planning. Should this be approved on January 14th of next year, we would return a draft of the RFP to the board for approval. On February 25th, we would bring forth a recommendation on a preferred consultant to perform studies, and then late April, early May, we would see results of these studies. The studies take about 8 to 12 weeks. They are performed by a consultant that specializes in the sports industry world. They are not going to be done by staff. We do not have the expertise in-house to handle this. That is why we're very interested in moving forward with hiring a consultant to perform these studies, one who has a background in this type of work and specializes in these types of facilities. But again, I just want to reiterate, this is an idea for the site. This is not something the village is committing to. This is simply an idea that we're bringing forward as an opportunity as per your direction and your strategic goals. Before I go any further, which is, I'm at the end of my spiel here, I just want to introduce Beth Marchetti. Beth is the executive director of the DCVB. She's helped facilitate the sports market study that they had previously, as well as been a great partner for us. As I mentioned, last week we had a big win for business at the Marriott, $250,000 piece of business. They've been instrumental partners in bringing this opportunity forward as well as other opportunities. I just want to give her a chance to discuss the DCVB.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. It's been a real honor and pleasure to work with Evan, and thank you for your participation with DuPage County. We've been around for over 30 years, so we're the best kept secret you never knew existed, because we're supposed to cast a wider net and go out to bring business in, to bring visitors and overnight stays and meetings. So we will never not go after meetings and conferences. That's really a mission that we have. We are similar in Chicago's hotel pattern. Monday through Thursday, we're pretty full. But what we're lacking is the weekend business. And just want to take a real quick poll. Who here has been to Rockford for any sports tournaments? Oh, anybody in the audience? Rockford? Okay. So it all boils down to, we went through a strategic planning exercise, and we said, well, what do we want to be when we grow up? We've been 30 years of being really successful, but the market's changing. Chicago has built 4,000 new hotel rooms in the last 3 years and has like several different projects coming on market. We went through a new brand. We had a product development committee started, and we really thought sports was one of the pieces of that product development. How can we book our hotel rooms on the weekends? So our brand, and we all know that DuPage County is the healthiest county in Illinois, so sports and recreation fit right into that brand. So we've been working really closely with all of our village partners, and sports is the fastest growing segment. So it really boils down to, if you hear in the news, Gurney's talking about building something, and different places are talking about building something. So we just wanted to throw out this opportunity. Secondly, in the last month, we caught wind that there are 3 different grants that are going to be appropriated this year that haven't been in the last 3 years. And one of them would help pay for research to build something. So again, this is just a feasibility study that we can secure half of the money. So we said, well, why not? Let's see what we can find out for the village of Burr Ridge. So I do agree with, I want to real quickly say, planners really want to be under one roof. They like, 80% of all meeting planners or event planners want to be housed under the same roof because it's cheaper for them. They're not having to worry about transportation. And obviously it's convenient. And Chicago's cold winters, we've got to keep them under the same roof. So I'm happy to answer questions. I know you've had a lot on the agenda tonight. I'm just really pleased to be here. I know we've tried a couple times. Where's Evan? There he is. Again, we're a $2.5 billion industry in DuPage. Coming up this year and in next year, we are hosting the BMW Championship at Medina Country Club. We are Legacy Sports. We are hosting the USBC Women's Open in 2021, which will bring 60,000 people to DuPage County to bowl at Addison and Stardust Bowl. So, I mean, who knew, right? When I say bowling, I get eye rolls, but the thing is, they're offering $200,000 scholarships. So, 30 colleges were here a couple years ago to look at these kids bowling. So we want to just fill our hotel rooms and make sure there's lots of economic vitality to our communities. So I'm happy to answer questions as well.
Questions?
No, I'm sorry. When they're done.
The only thing I would think about is, with some of the comments that have been, what about how it would affect something like Four Seasons?
So one thing I want to stress is there's a difference between rec centers and sports facilities.
You speak up, please, Evan.
I'm sorry. Five Seasons is a private club in which none of the sports played there would be built under this facility. Five Seasons is generally for residents in the area. This would have components certainly for residents in the area. We want to make sure that we get the Park District involved in such a facility like this. Five Seasons, again, is a private institution. You have to pay to be a member there. And again, all the sports that they specialize in, racquetball, tennis, things like that, are not going to be focuses of this facility. So we don't see them as being a competitor for this particular development.
Trustee Pavez, if I could piggyback on that, I want to emphasize Evan's comment on his slide that's on the screen right now that commits the village to no further action or financial commitment beyond the study of this proposed development. This is an opportunity to explore something, nothing more than that. It does require some investment of village dollars, but it is a potential investment that would pay off hundreds of times in terms of services and revenue to the village. I can assure you that through this process, if at any point in time the village staff identifies any aspect of anything we're doing here that doesn't fit with the standards of the village, if the traffic doesn't work, if the buildings aren't laid out right, if we just decide this isn't right for the village, we'll be the first ones coming to you and telling you that and giving you that information so you can make adjustments or pull the plug on it. But we felt obligated to bring this to your attention because it checks off a lot of boxes for economic development for the village and for the long-term financial stability of the village to the benefit of the residents and the entire community.
Can I make one comment also? The reason it's a little bit expedited is we just learned of this grant a couple weeks ago and they're due February 1st. So we wanted to bring it to your attention so we didn't have to wait till next month when there was a board meeting and that we really had that front and center. And I do want to say one other piece of information. We already did a feasibility study on our venues. And although we all love what we have here in DuPage and Cook County, we have wonderful facilities. They're being used by the locals. They're not really tourism ready. They're not equipped to handle crowds. We don't have access to the calendar. They're full. If you're looking at, I'm just giving you an example, which is outside this realm, hockey, you can't find ice time. We're having a weightlifting tournament in a ballroom at a hotel because we can't find space for these people. The colleges and universities in our area are full with their camps and different things. So this is an area that we are lacking in the county and in the regional area. So that's why, again, why we brought it to your attention.
Zach?
Thank you. Is there any opportunity for the money, and Evan, I should have asked you this before, is there any opportunity for the money we're paying to come out of the hotel motel tax fund? I mean, it seems like it's right up the alley of one of those possible uses.
Yes,
So
it will come out of the hotel motel fund in some capacity, yes.
So it really wouldn't have much impact on our budget, and that's money we are looking for good ways to spend anyway, correct?
Correct.
Wonderful.
Yes?
So the fee includes, like, would they provide us with plans if we decide to go ahead with them, or?
No, and that's why we actually feel like the feasibility study option here is attractive in that if you get to the end, even if it said everything checks out, you still have the opportunity to spend no further money bringing up renderings, hiring architects. Again, it just commits you to no further steps. We want to make sure that this is a deliberate process where you feel informed and you can make good decisions at every point in the process. Now, if you get to the end of this and you say, we'd like to maybe invest in a rendering or two just to provide some better understanding of what the next RFP would look like to go out and maybe explore this development, at that point we can discuss.
And they would be able to do that?
We could certainly provide that through the next RFP. Basically, the consultants that we would be hiring have the ability to take us from step one to step, whatever the last step is, however far we want to go. They have the expertise to take us, again, from here, how do we write an RFP, to opening the doors. They just have that know-how, and even further beyond the doors. Some of them can build them and manage them if we get that far, but that's many steps down the road.
It sounds like a fabulous idea, plus we have the funds in the right fund. Basically zero chance of having a problem. We need a motion?
I think it has potential. 30 years ago, I was involved with my two sons in competitive ice hockey. We traveled every third weekend somewhere else. So I know people can really get involved. The only thing, like I said, I don't know how it's now. So I wouldn't have an opportunity. The way I would look at it is, we're talking $75,000. It would come out of the hotel motel tax fund, $37,500, and the state grant would give us $37,500. That I would consider supporting. Yes.
A couple of questions. Evan, could you go back to one of your slides, please? This is the first slide that was the development process slide.
Is that it?
The one forward. Stay right there. Okay, answer my question. Thank you. Okay, so let's say this works out great. It's a wonderful economic forecast for this facility. All the numbers look good. It's an offer we can't pass up. So village starts to move forward on it. So who would the developer be? The village or the private party?
At that point, there are multiple options. There are
what's the current vision?
So there are several visions that you could take. You could take an opportunity to have the village be an owner, or have a private developer be an owner. There's part of our study was through a company that has built some of these in Indiana, and they said that there was several provisions in their contract that would allow the city to take over on a lease basis, buy the property outright, just to have the private. Again, these are almost questions we want to leave unanswered for now, just to get ahead of ourselves.
It's something burning. So at the end of the day, then who would own the facility? Obviously, if a village partook in development, they would own it, maybe, or private party would own it, maybe, or
Both
partnering with the park district, maybe.
Yep.
Well, all kinds of options. Okay.
I think our clear preference would be private ownership.
But there is a possibility the village could get involved, possibly. Okay.
Possible, sure.
And currently TCF Bank owns that entire parcel.
They own the entire parcel and the building, yes.
And are they interested in marketing it?
I would say at this point it's not actively on the market, but we have had some conversations that indicate that they're trying to phase themselves out of property. However, again, there's no sale record.
Let me expand on that, because I've had some conversations with TCF. We're talking about the vacant land around the building.
Yeah.
So their building likely would not be affected unless they decided they wanted it affected, which they intend to stay there, and they're.
So vacant land and the parking area.
Potentially the parking area, if a parking deck were to be built,
Then,
or to have shared parking.
I know it's pre-preliminary and conceptual at this point, but some initial questions. Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
And the study would be specifically for sports?
Yes.
Facility.
Yeah, it would be a sports facility with the opportunity to have some convention and meeting space. But yes, it would primarily be an indoor sports facility based on some general parameters that we would set.
Will they also study the hotel room situation?
Yes, they would tell us. They would tell us basically what you need to build, what you need to have happen to make this a successful facility.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, one more question. So when we're talking about these four sports here, basketball, volleyball, gymnastics, and cheerleading, we're talking about grade school, high school, college, adult, all ages, correct?
All ages, yep.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Okay, what's your Could I have a motion one way or the other on this?
So moved. So moved.
So moved in second. And basically what we're saying, not to exceed 75,000, 37.5 out of the hotel motel fund and 37.5 out of the grant, right?
We have to,
We want to just clarify that
Yeah.
the grant has not been secured yet. However, we fit the criteria very strongly to win the grant. So the grant has not been won by DCVB yet. It's
And if
very
we-
likely that we are a
If we
contender.
don't get the grant, we'll be back to you on it. We won't go ahead unless
Yes.
we get the grant without your further review and approval.
Okay, so that's the motion and the second? Yes.
Question on the motion. Who applies for the grant? Is it staff or is it the DuPage County
It'd be
Visitors Board?
DCVB.
Okay, and you'll, okay.
It's a reimbursement grant also.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anything else? Roll call, please.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Scappa?
yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Model?
Yes.
Trustee Feza?
Yes,
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
6-0.
motion passes. We're down to, almost done. Other consideration for announcement, deliberation, or discussion. No official action will be taken. Any other yes? Go ahead.
There were previous actions from the board related to Spectrum and the, called the application for a variation on their outlets. At this time, Spectrum is just moving ahead with all that work. There's no side letter, there's no side agreement, anything like that. So all that action's being put to the side. They're finishing work up this week, and we anticipate pretty much done building on Thursday at their grand opening, which I hope to see you all at, by the way.
Did we get an invite?
Yes, their grand opening is this Thursday between 4 to 6, Christmas exchange, scavenger hunt, all those fun things. Yes, 4 to 6 at the property. It's come out great.
I see their advertisements on TV.
Do you really?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw them too, yeah.
What time?
4 to 6.
Okay. Residents' comments at this time? Yes, Mr. Bittner?
Something nice to say. John Bittner, 2 Hidden Lake Drive, Burr Ridge. The guys that did the sewer system on County Line Road, repaired it between 83rd and Hidden Lake Road. You guys did a great job. Not a good job, an incredibly great job. I talked to the guys working there. They had 6 weeks to finish that project. They finished it in exactly that time. They broke the sidewalk up, repaired it. Took the ground down, repaired it. Got the grass down before the first snow. These young men, I talk to them all the time, and they were just, because I gave them water, and I also gave them a couple of 6-packs of beer when they were done. And they did an absolutely wonderful, wonderful job. So kudos to that subcontractor, and kudos to you guys for how you handled it, okay? Surgeonics. My building was next door to Surgeonics for 16 years, 7725 South Quincy. I had between 20 and 40 employees that worked there during that time. 2 died of cancer. 1 was breast cancer, 1 was leukemia. What you keep talking about is Surgeonics. But the biggest problem with Surgeonics is Willowbrook, not Burr Ridge, not Darien, Willowbrook. Because I had the police and the fire department once a year go through my facility. Why? Because the fire department had to know what was in that building for insurance and if there was a fire. So the village manager also came with the chief of the fire department. Every year, I had to fill out a form of what was in my building. They went through every 6 months to make sure all my aisles were clear, because if there was a fire, they had to repair it. People involved with Willowbrook knew what was going on in that building and didn't do anything. Didn't do anything. So you get mad at Surgeonics, absolutely. They should never have built that building there. Should have been on a farm somewhere. But Willowbrook, and that's something else I'll talk about some other time, but I keep hearing this, but nobody talks about Willowbrook. They should have known. Sorry, and they should have told it, and they should have stopped it. Thank you.
Mark Thomas, 7515 Drew. I'd like to rebut a few things that Mr. Schiappa had to say. First off, I notified staff the day after the meeting when the error was made. The reason it's been delayed so long is because of the lack of meetings. Second of all, your pictures that you had, obviously they got a fantastic deal on that piece of property. And apparently you didn't listen to all the residents that were there. Every resident that surrounded that property was at every board meeting and every plan commission since that happened.
2 residents, not every resident.
No, every resident was here. Maybe they all didn't speak, but they were all here. So, also, you said that they started construction. Well, Doug told me that he was holding up the permits. So if they're doing construction, they're doing it illegally currently. So, you know, based on all this, obviously there was an error, 81% over without any hardship at all. The residents have completely lost their voice in this town. This is amazing. Every resident around that piece of property objected to this, and it was granted 81% over what the ordinance allowed. This is absolutely ridiculous. So Burr Ridge is not a special place anymore, because obviously the residents have no say-so. Ordinances don't matter anymore. Hey, I hauled 6,000 pounds worth of steel out of my backyard and cut down an enormous amount of brush. So I'll be coming by for my 80% variance.
Petitioner's a resident too.
One.
Any other residents? Reports and communication from village officials? The only comment I'd like to make is when you're driving around the village, if you have, there are some places that have some enormous lights fixtures set up for the Christmas holidays, and you should take them in. It's really enjoyable to drive around and see what the people have done. Non-resident comments?
See the copy of this so you can follow along. You're the acting mayor?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
What's this?
Excuse me.
Walked into a big old bear trap.
Can you state your name, please?
My name is Robert Gallagher, but who I am is not really important. What I am, not really important, but what I can do is really important. This, by the way, reminds me of that TV series called Game of Thrones. Everybody's sitting around the round table with His Majesty, with the board, and the only difference is instead of the wine goblets, you have water bottles and coffee cups and whatnot. But I'm going to start this saying a little statement that we place the thorny crown of power upon your head, and you will use it wisely, or you will dread. For be you live or be you dead, we will grind your bones to make our bread. What it basically says is you are a public servant. You are there to serve the people. It's not the other way around. We pay your wages. We employ you to do the right thing. We do not employ you to corrupt the laws, federal laws or state or even city. Now, I got into a beef with Case New Holland. I'm from the kingdom of Griffith, Indiana, okay? And the issue is over a labor issue, and the investigation is protected by federal law. It seems that your police department took it upon themselves to interfere with my investigation. Now, I warned you about this. I've been here before. You weren't here. I'm sorry. Okay? The issue is age discrimination, and your police officers intervened and intimidated my witnesses, obstructed justice, and intimidation of witnesses, obstruction of justice. They did something else too that was also illegal by federal law. So I have a federal complaint here. And I previously warned you to stand down, but you didn't. Even last week, one of your police officers called me and tried to negotiate a partial settlement. You are not the representative for Case New Holland. You never were. And what I did was about 10 days ago, I served notice on, I forget the name of the family, Fertilli family in Italy. They're kind of like the Kennedys of Italy. And they own companies like Renault, Fiat, Ferrari, and about 5 other companies. And they have a holding company in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. And they're not too happy about that, but I know that they've been acting on it. They've heard about it here in Burr Ridge at Case New Holland because your police officers responded to it, which they should not have. And I didn't just warn them, I didn't just ask them not to intervene, I ordered them not to intervene. I demanded it. Okay? So now, I'm a man of my word.
Sir?
We're in federal court.
Yeah, if you have a complaint to present to the village, we have a copy. We will process it. We'll be in touch. I'm not sure what else you might need from the board at this point.
Judge Andrew Wood is probably going to respond by asking you to settle out of court first. She's not going to like it if you do not put a good faith effort to
Right. So
settle
we
out
can
of
be
court.
in communication.
Furthermore, I want no interference from the police department. It looks like I might have to amend this complaint to add another defendant, but if I have any more interference in my investigation into labor practices at Case New Holland or CNH, I will not hesitate to amend the complaint to add another count. I think there's 10 counts now.
Understood.
Okay. So you've been served notice. And I'll tell Judge Wood that. She'll be sending you a court order.
Very good.
Probably to comply with discovery and try to negotiate a settlement before any money is.
Mr. Chairman, point of order, the speaker's time has expired.
I'm just about ready.
Thank you.
About another minute was gonna be the tops.
Thank you.
That's fine. We'll have plenty of time to talk later. Thank you.
Okay, the other non-residents? Okay, at this time, we're gonna go to closed session for 2 reasons. Approval of the closed session minutes of November 12th, 2018, and discuss regarding pending or probable litigation. Have a motion to
So moved.
move.
To go into closed session to discuss pending or probable litigation.
Thank you.
Second.
There's been a second. Roll call.
Trustee Model?
I'm sorry, I'm,
Trustee Model?
Roll call to go into
let's
closed
have some order in the room here, we're still, yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
Trustee Baveza?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Okay, so called. We'll go into closed session. Take about a minute or two break, and then we'll open closed session up.